Lance here. I'm so glad that everybody is able to join me every week, even if it's not live during the session itself. If you're watching this at some point later, especially those on Instagram, again, I apologize for the technical issue. Uh, for those of you on other channels, just to give you a heads up, I'm having some technical issues connecting my Restream account with my Instagram. So if anyone out there is a technical wizard, please get in touch with me at any point. I would really like to connect my Instagram account to this Restream platform so that I can get this live training out every week to all three platforms. Um, but if you're watching this on Instagram, it means that I was able to download the video and upload it to my Instagram feed later on. So hopefully that works out. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be talking about um, a concept that is absolutely critical to success in any endeavor, whether we have CP or not. But the reality is this: cerebral palsy creates challenges in our lives, but there's one fundamental factor that we need to remember. At the end of the day, it's not really going anywhere. It's not really going anywhere. It's not going to change. So we need to accept the fact that it's here. So today's session is all about acceptance, okay? And acceptance of our situation. And I actually have a PowerPoint that I've created that I'm going to pull up here to share with you in a moment. Just give me a moment here. There we go. So, acceptance. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, this is a critical concept for those of us with CP. But even if we don't have CP, if we have anything in our lives that we may not like about our circumstances, but we cannot change, we may have to eventually accept some things about our life, about our circumstances that are not changeable, that are not able to be removed or changed in any way. And this can be challenging for many reasons, which I'll get into a little bit later. But let me talk to you a little bit more about my own situation. I have a story I want to share with you. When I was around, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted desperately to play the guitar. And I wanted to play the guitar because when I was about 4 or 5, almost every weekend I would lie in bed and I'd listen to my dad playing the guitar, and I loved the sound of that guitar. And I wanted to be able to play the guitar like him. In fact, I enjoyed the music so much that I spent all this time. Actually, I would stay up for hours listening. I should have been sleeping. It was late at night, but I would listen to him. And what was funny was that I'd get so into it. And at that time, I was a lot smaller and able to crawl around on the floor. So I actually crawled out of bed many nights, actually, crawled out of bed and crawled down the hallway in our house. And I would lay in the hallway and listen to my dad play the guitar. And usually my mom would be singing. And, you know, There were so many times when I would listen to him and I would think about what it would be like to be able to play that guitar. But here's the deal. Even at that young age, I knew that I didn't have very good mobility with my hands. Of course, I didn't really know why or know how or whatever, but at that age, I knew that I couldn't move my hands the way he did. And that was really tough for me. And when I got older, I remember telling my parents, and my dad and I were talking, and I would tell my dad how much I enjoyed the music, how much I enjoyed listening to him play. And thankfully, my dad never really stopped me from listening. Of course, they wanted me to go to bed. And of course, they didn't like that I would be up late at that age, but they would let me listen. And one of the things that I'll never forget as I got older was my dad introduced me to the piano. And in fact, at a very young age, even younger than this, he introduced me to the piano. And that piano became my instrument. And it became something of importance to me because I was able to finally see that I could play an instrument. The reason I talk about this is because even to this day, when I think back at the memories of watching my dad play guitar and becoming transfixed with this idea, I often see myself wanting, see myself finding a way to adapt a guitar in some way. I'm hell bent on finding a way to play this guitar because it meant so much to me and I enjoyed it so much. But eventually, in my adulthood, I began to understand that there were just some things that were not possible. I was not going to be a guitar player. I was never going to be a guitar player unless they were somehow able to correct the lack of fine motor skill in my left hand, which is not happening anytime soon. I would not ever really be able to play a traditional guitar. But I still had a joy for music, and I did have an instrument that was accessible to me. So that made it easier to accept my circumstances. And instead of focusing on what I didn't have, I was able to focus on what I did have, which was a piano, keyboard, and something to help me to still be able to express myself in music. And I'm no professional player, and I still don't play very often. But when I do, I enjoy playing keyboard, playing the piano, and I thank my dad for helping me find that. Because without that, I would still be that little kid wishing he could play guitar. So let's talk about acceptance from a psychological standpoint. It's the process of not simply noticing, but also embracing one's experience without judgment or defense. Uh, okay? Without judgment or defense. Okay? accepting one's experience without judgment or defense. And it's not just accepting, but actually embracing. So, in that story, folks, when I talk about embracing, when I talk about finding the keyboard as a replacement for the guitar, that's me embracing my limitations. I didn't completely eliminate music from my life. I, in fact, found a different way to express myself in music and to enjoy playing music, but in a different mode, in a different fashion. And I was able to find joy and experience life and accept my limitations for what they are. Okay? Let me move. I want to see if anybody has left anything in the chat. Uh, Anytime I've said something, please feel free to leave a comment in the chat. I do have access to it through the Restream uh, platform, so please let me know if you have anything. I'm going to take that out because there's no chat at this point. But if you do have anything that you'd like to say during this session, please feel free to include it here. Okay? Because I can see your comments, and I know that a couple people are watching, so I really appreciate that today. Thank you. So, why is acceptance so hard? Let's talk about that for a minute. Well, it's natural for all human beings to avoid pain. And the reality is that if you think back to my story of me sitting there fantasizing about playing the guitar, it's a pretty painful thing to realize that, you know, I I can't play. Something that brought me so much joy, something that brought me so much happiness. And yet here I am with this realization that I can't do it. And that's why I struggled with it, you see. you know, for many, many years I was hell bent on finding an adaptation. And I actually remember my dad finding a toy that had buttons instead of strings. So it was a guitar and it had buttons instead of strings. And it wasn't really a guitar in the traditional sense, but it kind of looked like one, and at least I could access it. But again, by finding that toy, was I just simply avoiding the pain and not accepting of the fact that I did have this limitation and not allowing myself to see things differently. Okay? There's also cognitive bias that prevents us from being able to accept things. And when we talk about cognitive bias, we're talking about a way of thinking that is very dichotomous or black and white. You know, it is or it isn't. Um, so this idea of acceptance, um, it's hard to accept things because it means that we have to again make that recognition in our minds, and sometimes our cognitive biases get in the way. Like, the idea of, well, maybe there is this other way. And of course, there's social pressure. You know, social pressure also makes it hard for us to accept things. Social pressure being the world has, our immediate social world has expectations of our of everyone around us. There's certain social norms that are expected for everyone who are part of a social environment. You know, people with disabilities um, are in today's society more able to access things and do things than they were many, many years ago. So there's a lot of social pressure to find those adaptations or to find the way around and to be creative. And I'm not saying any of those things are bad. There are adaptations and there are ways of making things work, and maybe there is a way for me to play guitar. But when we talk about traditional playing of a guitar, that in itself, without adaptation, is not possible. Okay? So, adaptation doesn't mean that we're not accepting of limitations. It just means that we're being creative and finding new ways to interact with our environment. So that's not contradicting acceptance of things. It means that we're modifying things to make them more accessible. I hope that makes sense to people because I don't want people to think that I'm trying to contradict myself. Okay? Now, I also want to talk to you a little bit about uh, a concept that I think is incredibly powerful. And I have to be honest, some of you might recognize some of these questions from a very famous um, life coach, I guess, or guru. If I know he doesn't like that, but Mr. Tony Robbins, when he talks about focusing on things, and he talks about the three questions that we all need to ask ourselves. Okay, I just want to share this with you because I think that this goes hand in hand with acceptance, and it gives you a way to find acceptance but be creative about life, and it allows you to find positives in negative situations. When we have a choice on what to focus on, it makes it easier for us to accept things. So, if I focus my attention on the fact that my hand doesn't work the way everybody else's does, then what that means is I'm going to focus on what I don't have. And when I focus on what I don't have, what do you think the meaning of that is? What meaning do you think I'm going to assign to myself or to that situation? It means that I am limited. It means that I am incapable. It means that I am disabled, that I am not able to contribute. So when I have that meaning of I am limited and I don't have the ability and I can't do this, how do you think that makes me feel? Is that a positive emotion that comes out of that? No, I feel pretty crappy and I'm not very happy about things. But if we make a different decision and we start down a different path, let's flip the switch for 1 second just to see what's possible here. Let's say I focus on what I do have instead of what I don't have. So I have a love for music. Okay, that's true. I have a love for music, and I have a desire to find a way to express myself through music. Does it necessarily have to be a guitar? Maybe not. And that's what I found out as I got older. And I found a keyboard. And I found that I could wheel under a keyboard and play my heart out and love every second of it. And although it wasn't the guitar, it was allowing me to shift my focus or shift to something that I did have, which was the ability to press the keys. I didn't have the ability to pluck strings, but I did have the ability to press keys. And with the electric keyboard and all of the adaptations that can be made to an electric keyboard, a lot was possible. And I was able to open up a whole host of abilities that I didn't otherwise have, wouldn't have been able to experience. Okay, so now what does that mean? When I focus on what I have, it means I am capable. Maybe in a different way, but now I am capable. And what emotion comes through when when I focus on what I do have? Well, for me, it's gratitude. Gratitude, folks. I'm now seeing some comments. Dave Copeland, I'm sorry, I just noticed your comments. I've been so focused on my own thoughts that I haven't been looking at the screen. So thank you. Um, I really want you guys to see that when I was able to accept the fact that the guitar wasn't possible, but the keyboard was, my emotion and how I felt was different. It was so different. So, folks, I've spent all this time talking about shifting your focus and shifting the meaning that we assign to that, and also deciding what emotion we're going to assign to a particular situation. If we do this on a regular basis, when we're faced with a challenge that seems like it's not going to be able to be overcome, what about when we realize that, you know, um, maybe we failed in something that we tried to do in the past? Does that mean we're not capable? No, it means that in that moment, at that particular point in time, we did not succeed. But what can we do to learn from that experience? And if we decide that at that moment, that failed attempt was a learning opportunity, we've then shifted our focus on not what we don't have because of the failure, but rather what we gained from the experience of that failure. Now we've shifted our focus on what we have from that failure, which is new knowledge, new experience, so we can learn, adapt, and change. And when we learn, adapt, and change, then we can go ahead and try another crack at whatever it is we're trying to succeed at. Okay? When we change our focus, we change everything else that follows. Okay? I hope that this has been helpful. I really want to engage. I really thank you, Dave, for sharing. Uh, Failure is a lesson. And the other point that I made, which I hope is clear, is that failure is nothing more than a point in time. Okay? It's a point in time. It's not an end. A failure is not an end. It doesn't mean it's over. It's simply a point in time. We can move forward from that point in time and we can make changes so that we can grow and change and eventually succeed. The other thing is, failure is probably a stepping stone. Not probably, but it is simply a stepping stone to success. And one final point that I'd make is failure makes success possible. Failure without failure, success is meaningless. Meaningless, folks. Think about that for a minute. Anyways, I really hope that the content that I've shared today is helpful and insightful. Does anybody have any questions or other comments, Mr. Copeland? I don't want to put you on the spot, and maybe it's hard for you, but if you have any questions or comments, I'd really no, I'm good, he says. All right. Well, I really appreciate you coming online today and being part of this. I have one more slide to share with you. Um, and again, so next steps. First of all, I want you to really reflect on this concept. And I would really recommend anybody watching this to think about a situation in their life where they have maybe not been able to accept a particular circumstance or something in their life and use the process of shifting your focus to help you gain that acceptance. Okay? Shifting from, oh my God, this is the end of the world, to what can I learn from this? Or what have I gained from this experience? Shift that focus and watch how things develop and change. And I would really recommend that you start journaling this for yourself and making uh, some time for yourself to reflect on some of these ideas. Okay, so I'm hopeful that you'll take the time to do that and get the most out of this training today. I also want everybody to know, just as an aside, in the next week or so, I'm going to be offering a free downloadable training that I'm really stoked about. And it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people. And it's coming in about a week or so. Um, I'll be I'll be posting about it and letting everybody know that it's out there. And I really think that this uh, free training that I'm gonna make available to anybody who wants it will be a game changer for those who really want to turn their cerebral palsy into an advantage. Okay, so that's just a little bit of a teaser of what's coming in the next week or so. Also, again, anybody with any suggestions or any kind of ideas for future live with Lance, I'm going to be doing this weekly, every week, folks, for at least 15 minutes minimum. A little bit long today. I actually had a little bit longer of a session. We're coming up on almost 30 minutes, so hopefully it's been helpful. But I'm really hoping to expand this. I'd like to actually. Oh, there's Tabitha. Hey, Tabitha, you came in towards the end of the session, but you can always definitely check us out unless unless you were here and I couldn't see you before. If you were here before, great. Um, anyways, what I was saying is, if you have any ideas for future live with Lance um, trainings, please get in touch with me. Send me a private message either on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Let me know what you would recommend that I do, or if you have any ideas of any kind of guests that might be able to come online. I actually, to be honest with you, I would really like to, not to put you on the spot, Mr. Copeland, but eventually I might have you come in and share some of your experiences, if you'd be willing to share them, of course. Don't want to put you on the spot, but I think that you would have some insights, and you too, Tabitha, for that matter. I really think that you would certainly have some insights to share with people. So maybe we could have either like a round table discussion or something like that, where we can have a meaningful dialogue to really give some parents and some young people with CP and other disabilities a new perspective. Because, I sit here and I talk about things and I have my experiences, but it's always good to bring other people in and have their perspectives. So I would be really excited to have kind of a discussion amongst us. Uh, and if you guys are open to it, I'll certainly touch base with you guys and we'll set that up. Um, and as luck would have it, you'll notice that I'm actually changing the day for myself next week just because I have so much on my calendar this coming week. So I'm actually going to be running my Live with Lance uh, on all my platforms, hopefully Instagram included at that point. I'm going to be running the Live with Lance on Friday next week instead of Sunday. Yes, there's a new day. It's going to be on the Friday, likely at 1 p.m. For those of you who are working, I'm sorry. I had no choice but to move it to that time for this week only. After that, we'll be going back to the regular time slot, 1 p.m. on the Sundays. But for next week only, um, it'll be on Friday. Okay. So hopefully that works for everybody. If you have any questions or comments after the fact, please feel free to get in touch with me. I've really enjoyed the time today, and thanks for watching.